My name is Nisha Bowden, and I'm 8 years old.
So Nisha, tell me, where are you right now?
In the shelter.
How is it right now? What have you heard about the news? Like, what's going on?
Like, what's going on in the news is the coronavirus. My mama, I worry about it because she can't go to work because of the coronavirus. Yesterday she couldn't go to work, and today she can't.
This is the Frontline Dispatch. I'm Rainey Aronson, executive producer of Frontline. Covering coronavirus is a special series of conversations with our journalists in the field. They're reporting on this pandemic and how it's impacting lives across the world, moment to moment.
When you hear the orders from the governor, from the president to stay at home, to shelter in place, the reality for many of these people is they don't have a home.
That's reporter and filmmaker Ben C. He's in Ohio reporting on how the spread of coronavirus is affecting people experiencing homelessness. A recent report estimated that in Ohio alone, it could cost more than $40 million to help shelter people who are homeless amid the coronavirus pandemic. And that's just for 3 months. Ben's been spending time with a family navigating the situation.
They're the first to be hit with the problems and the last to recover from them.
He joined me from Cincinnati.
The Frontline Dispatch is made possible by the Abrams Foundation, committed to excellence in journalism, and by the WGBH Catalyst Fund.
Ben, hey.
Hey.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Thanks for joining us. You've been at the Bethany House in Cincinnati for a number of days now, and I understand that's a shelter for families experiencing homelessness. Talk to us a bit about what it's been like.
The Bethany House is a family shelter. They take in homeless families from around the city and state, and they try to put them in any sorts of housing, whether it be individual apartments, which they have a few of, or in our case, communal living centers, which are basically small dorm rooms with bunk beds that have small playrooms for the kids, a couple like cheap PC computers for them to kind of do their homework on, a big couch, and then a big TV. And for most of the time, this is kind of the last place these people want to end up. This is, they make it as comfortable as they can at Bethany House, and they do a good job of taking care of them. But this is a tough place to be. This is a place where you are there because you need to be. So everyone there is trying to get out of homelessness. And the reality is that now with coronavirus, it's not entirely the main focus of these people's lives there. These people are in the worst positions in their lives. They're homeless, they're living with their kids, they're trying to get their kids out of homelessness. And now the government, the media, everyone is suddenly telling them that around their complications are more complications.
Understanding that they're challenged already economically. So you're inside a small space and you're starting to get word about social distancing. Whatever does a family do in a shelter situation like that?
It's kind of on the workers of the shelter, and that's kind of their challenge right now, which is trying to get people to focus, trying to get people to understand the complications of the disease, to protect themselves from it.
Bethany House, we try to make it like a family. When the kids come in, we want it to imitate a home life. My goal is just to make sure the kids have a smooth transition in the shelter. The kids, I ensure that they have snacks, food, milk, juice. I talk to them, I play with them. It's difficult not to pick a child up. Now you can't touch anyone. How do you tell a child, I'm not allowed to touch you now?
As much as people do want to protect themselves, these people are struggling, and these people are also forgotten. These are the people that are the most kind of pushed out of this scenario. And the reality for them and the reality for the lives they live is that they have to go to work. They have to find ways to make money. They're living in a situation where they're trying to get out of. And even if there wasn't a virus outside, they still would have to be trying to get their lives going again. So really, when you hear the orders from the governor, from the president to stay at home, to shelter in place, the reality for many of these people is they don't have a home. They don't have a place that they can kind of relax in. They have to work. They have to go out and they have to struggle. The places they need to go are closed. The stores are closed. The the places where they work are closed. Most of the people that I've been following work in service industries, all closed. These are places that are cutting hours or firing staff, and really in just a matter of weeks, most of the opportunities that these people had to move out of homelessness, to make money, to get an apartment, those opportunities are going away.
I know you're following one family in particular. Can you tell me about them?
So I've been spending time with a family of 4. The mother is named Amanda. She has 3 kids living with her in the shelter, a set of twins and an older daughter. And they moved to Cincinnati earlier this year to get out of a complicated situation in Kentucky where they weren't safe and they were having gunshots come through their windows. They moved here hoping to move with Amanda's oldest daughter, who's in her 20s. And then just after a few weeks, it wasn't working. They were staying in a 1-bedroom apartment with 6 people, and they decided to move out. As that happened, as they decided to get ready to get a new apartment, Amanda decided to move into a homeless shelter to save money and to get ready to pay the expensive down payment and security deposit for an apartment. When that happened, the shelter-in-place order started. Her work, which is at a McDonald's at the night shift, was completely cut off. She got hours cut. She only works a few hours. And then suddenly her very organized plan to make the amount of money she needed to move into her new apartment was starting to fade. Now she only has a few weeks to make the maybe $1,500 that she needs just to get the security deposit fully paid. So she's trying to find everything she can. She's trying to call charities. She's trying to work with unemployment benefits. She's trying to, ask other people at the shelter to help her out. But really, there's just not much people can do because at this time, and the biggest problem for all these homeless people and for people struggling at this moment is that people are focusing on themselves. The shelter is not getting donations like they used to. They're barely getting food donations because most people are getting all the canned goods and keeping them for themselves. So Amanda, who's struggling to make, $1,500 and needs it in order to move into this apartment that likely she will lose if she doesn't get it soon, and likely as the pandemic continues, she won't be able to find something else. So if she doesn't get this money soon, she's not going to be able to move. And if she doesn't move, she's going to be stuck in homelessness even further. So she's worried. Her daughters are worried, all the time they're thinking about the risks that they're putting themselves in. But really, there's no other choice.
Tell me a little bit more about Amanda, especially thinking about her situation, really worried about her hours being cut, watching her children. She's homeless. Tell me a little bit about her life in this balance and how she's managing.
Amanda is managing as best she can. Her life is just in a constant state of motion, whether it be she's trying to find some place for her kids to stay while she goes to work, occupy them during the day because they don't have school, or getting on her cell phone and trying to sign up for unemployment, or trying to email or call charities to help support her. She is frazzled, she is exhausted, and she is just trying to keep her family going. The homeless shelter does a great job of helping her in any way they can. But really, at this point, everyone is in need. Everyone needs some support in some sense. And really, it feels like for her that she's on her own. And for her to balance these kids and balance her time and her work is really an exhausting and complicated process for her.
I'm not gonna lie, I was thinking of telling my boss, just take me off until the kids go back to school. But then I also have to think, I have a responsibility to them to provide for them as well. But if I get sick, then I'm still not gonna be able to go to work. And then they're gonna get sick. So it's like a situation you gotta weigh out, what's gonna be best. Everything is just overwhelming, and I just try to, hold up. I don't want nobody to see them stressed. I don't want them to see me stressed. I don't want them to, feel what I'm going through. So I usually just suck it up and deal with it.
How have the kids been handling this? What are their stressors, and how have they been dealing with all the changing news and their situation as it changes?
there's not a lot of stability. There's not a lot of constant in their lives. They've got no place to go to school. They've got very few places to play, and their living situation is just totally, changing from day to day. More so though for the kids, we talked a lot with Amanda's youngest daughter, Nisha, who's 8 years old and is extremely worried for her mother. All the time, Nisha is telling us about how she's afraid of her mother getting sick. She hears a little bit about the virus, but she doesn't quite understand everything about it. So all the time, every time her mother is waking her up at 3 a.m. to go to work, she has to worry the entire night. She told us she doesn't sleep as much. She told us that she's worrying for her mother every time she steps out.
We go to bed early, and then when we wake up, we be tired, and our mom already have our clothes out. All we have to do is just put on our clothes and put on our shoes and our jackets.
Do you get tired of moving around?
Yeah.
The kids are moving from place to place. Just last week, they moved from the shelter into hotels. When the shelters got shut down, there's no stability. There's no constant in their lives, and they're just holding on. And also, and more complicated for these kids and for the shelter, is there's no school. There's no place to put them during the day.
So there's nothing to do. Right.
Exactly. They're just kind of floundering and just waiting. Her mother, as soon as she gets home from work, tries to give them activities and stuff to do and tries to cook, but she's just in a constant state of movement all the time. And for the next 2 weeks, her hope is that she will work every night so she'll be able to make the money. But most nights, her hours keep getting cut.
So since the outbreak, you've mentioned to us that Amanda and her family have been moved into a hotel. How did that happen, and what was it like?
So a few days ago, at the very last minute, the homeless shelters decided that these communal living areas were no longer safe. And in just a matter of hours, they decided they were going to move hundreds of people, dozens of families, into empty hotel rooms. It was a total mess. It was just a quick movement of all these people to get into cars and buses. They were loading up plastic bags with food and clothes and just stuffing them in anything they could and quickly getting out of these places and into these hotel rooms. They didn't know how they were going to serve food yet. They didn't know how they were going to be able to get enough rooms for everyone. It was just as fast as they could. They decided they needed immediately to get out before they put themselves further at risk. So it was a just total mess and hodgepodge of kids running around carrying big bags, moms trying to grab anything they could from the freezer so that they could bring it to the hotel, not knowing if they would have refrigerators there. It was just it was just a big mess of people trying to just quickly move from this one place to another.
We're taking all this stuff out to my mom's car. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
I gotta get it on something really quick.
You can't carry it, don't hurt yourself.
Mama, look, I can't. No, I can't.
Just pull it.
I can.
So how are you feeling about today?
Good.
Everything must be bad.
For the kids, they love it. It's great for them. This is cool. This is like a nice hotel room. Most of these kids who are living under the poverty line have never experienced living in a hotel room. So they're excited and they're really getting a kick out of it. For the families, they're much more organized. They're cooking on themselves. There's a sense of constance and a sense of kind of security there.
Ben, your background has been, it seems like you can't get away from them, covering, pandemics. I was hoping you could talk to me a bit about how you're doing watching this one.
For me, it's hard to wrap your head around doing the things that I was doing for so long in West Africa and in Eastern Congo, here in suburban Ohio. For so long in covering Ebola, there's so much focus, there's so much kind of stress that goes on with every day going out into the world and putting yourself at risk and not quite knowing if you have got the sickness or not. I've covered many conflicts and wars, and when you cover those, you go into a place, conflict is that way, safety is the other way. If you go the other way, you're safe and you sleep well and you're fine. But with these outbreaks and with these viruses, you never quite know when you're safe. It's a constant state of alert and focus, and I think most people around the country are feeling that now. For me, this is something I experienced covering the last outbreaks of Ebola, but to do this here is something that is completely new. I've spent so much of my career leaving and going to places with complications. To have this happen now here in our country and these homes that I'm familiar with is really a complicated way to see the world. And it's really sobering and humbling for me to see that our health system and our society is at the same risks of so many other places in the world. And it's hard to kind of understand how we're going to get out of this and how we're going to get to the point where we can pass this. And more so, how the world's going to get back to normal, if at all.
I mean, considering all that, Ben, what's next for Amanda and her family?
So what's next for Amanda is kind of, up to the system around her. The reality is that if she doesn't make this money by the end of the month, then she will probably have to stay in the system that is supporting her in the shelters and in the current hotel if they can afford it. That will mean bouncing around more and more. That will mean trying to get more work and trying to support her kids. And that'll mean just kind of laying and continuing a state of unknown. And the reality is that the government, the businesses are all saying that this is going to last a few weeks. But for someone like Amanda, she can't be sure, and she can't understand when she'll be able to get out of this. And even if she does, the reality is if Amanda doesn't get this apartment, she will be struck much longer than anyone else. When people start going back to work, when the pandemic ends and people start going back outside, she will be in a much worse situation than society already had left her in before. And that's the reality for so many other homeless people. When natural disasters happen, when these big national emergencies happen, they're the first to be hit with the problems and the last to recover from them. And for Amanda, if she's not able to get this money, if she's not able to pay for this apartment, then likely she'll be stuck in homelessness for much longer than she wanted to.
Do you think it's hard for people like you?
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
I think it's hard for people like us because some jobs are closed, but some people can just work sometimes in their house or in their apartment.
And you can't do that.
Yeah.
Your mom can't do that.
My mom cannot.
Do you wish that she could stay home all the time?
I wish that she could stay home a lot of times but she's going to work right now, but some jobs are not, and she go to work every day, but not almost, because sometimes it be closed down because she's trying to earn more money so we can get our apartment, so we have to live in a hotel, and so our whole family can come together and we don't have to worry about them that much.
Ben, thanks so much for being out there for us in Ohio, and we look forward to continuing our conversation as you're out there filming.
Thanks, yeah.
Stay tuned for more in our Covering Coronavirus series. Next up, we're heading to Athens, Ohio, where filmmaker Jezza Newman is reporting on school shutdowns, food scarcity, and what that means for low-income kids. This podcast was produced by James Edwards and Max Green. Our production assistant is Lucy Sullivan. Catherine Guirart is our editorial coordinating producer. Pam Johnson is Frontline Senior Director of Strategy and Audience. Lauren Ezell is Senior Story Editor. Sarah Childress is our Senior Editor. Frank Kewen is our Senior Producer. And Andrew Metz is our Managing Editor. I'm Rainey Aronson, Executive Producer of Frontline. Music in this episode is by Stellwagen Symphonette. The Frontline Dispatch is produced at WGBH and powered by PRX.